All right, this one's for you, newbie. This is How to Taste Wine 101. Is it your first day? Is it first day on this planet? Is it your first day tasting wine? It might be.
That you had.
If you've ever wanted to taste wine and know what you like in a wine or what you don't like in a wine, or find the words to describe a wine, this video is for you. And I'm not just gonna tell you how to taste this wine. I'm gonna do something kind of fun. Let's play a game. And the game is called blind tasting. Blind tasting is usually something that fancy master sommeliers do. They will get a glass of wine, just like this, and their goal is to get the wine right. They're gonna guess the grape, the region, and how old the wine is just by tasting it. Now again, the goal for them is to get it right. That is not the goal for me in this exercise. The goal is to sort of enjoy the journey along the way. We're gonna talk about the flavors, we're gonna talk about textures and different things that will help us gain the vocabulary to talk more about wine. I'm gonna break this down into 4 sections. We're gonna look at it, we're gonna smell it, we're gonna taste it, and then we're gonna talk about it. And let's do it in a time limit because I'm a masochist and it's better this way. Start that timer. Is there a timer? Is it here? Is it here? I don't know. So looking at a wine. You can tell a lot about a wine just by looking at it.
No, look at it!
You'll find what's in the skins. In the skins of the grapes, you'll find pigmentation or color and tannin. And white wines don't have tannin. That's usually something you'll see with red wines. But for white wines, you can look at the color here. It kind of goes anywhere from a more like water color to a what we call a straw color in the biz, all the way to a golden or sort of amber brown color. If you imagine slicing an apple, putting it on the table, and it turns brown after a while, that's oxidation. Oxidation also happens with wine. Even if the wine is under cork, cork is porous. You're letting air in and it allows the wine to gain oxygen and also gain some color. Looking at this wine, I'm calling this more of a straw-colored wine. That tells me that this might be a thin-skinned grape. Thin-skinned grapes include Pinot Grigios, some Chardonnays, Rieslings come to mind, so that kind of gives us an idea just by looking at it. All right, let's smell it. Now, there's a reason why I'm swirling this, and it's not just to look fancy, because I know I look fancy, but it's really to release some of these aromas in the wine. Oxygen is your friend, and by swirling the wine in the glass, you're allowing a lot more oxygen to be introduced to the wine, unfurling all these flavors, and really just tasting more flavors. More swirling equals more flavors, more smells. Smelling more smells. Have you ever been to a tasting where they ask you what do you smell in the wine and then you forget everything you've ever smelled in your entire life? That's normal. You're not gonna be able to pick up an instrument and rock out a solo. We need to learn the scales. We gotta learn the basics. So it's okay if you smell something and maybe don't smell something right away. Be nice to yourself, okay? I usually ask, do you smell fruit right away or not fruit right away? Do you smell oranges or grapefruit or lemons or blackberries or cherries, right? Those are all fruits. Or do you smell something not fruity? Maybe something saltier, more minerally, something floral, something pretty, maybe something even like leaves, like dead leaves on a hiking trail. There's also studies that say that commercial items are also top of mind when we come to identifying smells. For example, if you smell a Pop-Tart, go for it, honestly. I've had wines that smell like pine sol. I've had wines that smell like Clorox bleach, for better or for worse. Don't be afraid to say the very first thing that comes to mind. It is not stupid. There are really no wrong answers. There's really no rules. Really just come from your experience. With this one, I am getting some pretty flowers, so maybe like honeysuckle. I have some in front of my house. I'm also getting something like candied honeycomb. There is something sort of sweet about this wine, but the honeycomb also comes through, something earthy or waxy about it. I'm also getting lime zest, almost 7-Eleven peach rings. There is something sort of candy-like about this wine. Again, no rules, no wrong answers. All right, I'm way overdue for actually trying this wine, so let's actually taste it together. Do you ever see sommeliers do that where they make that disgusting noise with their mouth? There's also a reason for that, and again, it's oxygen. I'm putting oxygen in the wine when I swirl it. Introducing oxygen is your friend, and you can even do it within your mouth. This sort of like sucking sounding. It's almost like aerating and creating bubbles within the wine. Helps you taste more flavors. You can decide to do that or not. I'm not gonna judge you either way. But when I taste the wine, I'm really confirming what do I smell and do I taste anything different? And so I think about the things I smell, that sort of lime zest, that florality, that a little bit of honeycomb, right? I'm confirming that this is what this wine tastes like. If you taste something new in the wine and it's a little bit different than how it smells, it's kind of like getting two for the price of one, right? You're getting a whole new experience just by tasting it versus smelling it. This wine is very distinct because it does have a bit of sweetness on it. Most of the wines in the American market are dry, but if you taste something and it tastes more like an apple juice or like a grape juice, there might be some sugar on this wine, and I can definitely tell with this one. There's also what we call petrol, which is stupid because we're getting what we call this petrol note, and in the US we don't call it petrol, we call it gasoline, but the people who decided on that term are of course from the UK, so we use the word petrol over here too. Does that really make any sense? No, but a lot of things in wine don't make sense and we just do it anyway. So we looked at the wine, smelled it, tasted it, now let's talk about it. You're gonna wanna think about what kind of wines would I find in a restaurant, or what would I order something by the glass, you know? Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, right? Just start naming grapes off the top of your head, write them down. If you need to look them up too, that's fine too, Google is your friend. And you wanna think about what characteristics do some of these grapes have or some of these wines have. And I know that this takes a lot of time. I definitely needed a lot of help having charts and graphs in front of me when I started doing these blind tastings of, yes, even if I can nail down the flavor or the structure of a wine, what else do I need to know? So don't be afraid to print out some resources for yourself. Just literally Google common white wine grapes or common red wine grapes, and that'll be super helpful to start, and you'll start kind of putting the pieces together of grapes that come to mind right away, or even some of your favorite grapes. Considering all the factors, there's only could be a couple things. Since this wine is sweet, it really narrows down my categories. I think about all the sweet wines that are really commercially available in the US right now. Things like Moscato, Moscato d'Asti, Riesling, maybe a Sauterne, maybe a dessert wine. But usually with Sauternes or dessert wines, they're very
viscous.
So it's really gotta be either a Moscato or a Riesling. And I'm gonna have to go with Riesling for this reason. That petrol, that gasoline thing, really is an indicator of where we are in the world. There's only so many wines in the world that have that quality to it. And so I'm guessing that this is going to be a Riesling. The Mosel is a very popular region in Germany. And again, I only know all this stuff because I think about this stuff and I teach this stuff all the time. It takes time to get to this conclusion section. So if I were you, I would still be focusing on narrowing down flavors, breaking it into categories, breaking it into fruits or not fruit, breaking it into earthiness or florality, right? I would start there for beginners. And then as you build more confidence, then we can start talking about conclusions to what this grape might be and why. So with some experience and practice, I can probably say this is a Riesling from the Mosel, and it's probably something off dry, meaning it's got a bit of sugar on it. You got one of these at home? No? That's okay. Got a sock at home? Just a way to cover it. If you live with a spouse at home, ask them really nicely to put their favorite sock over the wine so you can guess it along. But this makes a good gift too. Ask your grandma to knit one of these. So let's see if I get to keep my job and if the wine is right. So this is in fact, German labels, confusing, intimidating.
Terrifying.
I know, but it says a Riesling. This is from the Mosel, which was a pretty good guess. Most of the wines that we get from Germany that are sweet Rieslings are probably from the Mosel. And this is very typical. Wine with typicity is something that we really look for as professionals. Yes, you can try bodega wines. You can try to do this with bodega wines or wines from the corner store, but you might have a hard time finding wines with typicity, but it's still fun. It's still a good exercise. If you want to try to do this at home and you live with a roommate or a spouse, have them pick any wine at random. Yes, I picked a very typical wine, but this can work with any kind of wine. Again, the goal is not to get it right. It's the journey along the way. It's about building that confidence and feeling really good about the vocabulary and the words you're using to describe a wine. If you don't live with anyone, I do this as well, where I'll go to the corner store. I know my guy, he's a good guy. And I will just ask him, will you pick a wine for me, a white wine that's under $15 and don't tell me what it is? And usually they're pretty nice about it. This is a very great beginner way to get into wine without feeling intimidating or saying the wrong thing. I will also include my PDF with the blind tasting notes on there. This is the PDF that I give to my clients when I do these blind tastings with them. So follow along on there, pick a wine and just get started. Yeah. I think that's a wrap.